Hello, everyone, and it is time for Astrology in the News for March 14th, 2018. And man, what an active day! March is very active, and it's going to get even more active. Wait until this summer because when Mars goes retrograde in Vedic Capricorn, we're going to have some very interesting times because when Mars goes retrograde, it's going to be conjunct the south node of the moon, otherwise known as K2, right? So starting off with today with the yogic wisdom of the day. Yoga is not about touching your toes. It's about what you learn on the way down. And this is for Jigar Gore, a wonderful yogi. For me, it was don't do hot yoga because you fall in a pool of your own ass and it's not fun. Hot yoga is not really yoga anyway. I mean, it's not. Anyway, that's a personal opinion, but I don't like hot yoga. If you can't tell. So, unfortunately, one of the greatest scientists of the 20th and 21st centuries has died. Mr. Hawking dies at age 76. Miracle considering he was only projected to live 2 years when he was first diagnosed with his condition. So what I think they should do is Bezos is going to buy his voice for $1 billion and replace it with replace Alexa's voice. How awesome would that be? I'm actually half serious about this. Wouldn't that be a great tribute to actually take Hawking's voice and just for like a day or two replace Alexa's voice? I think that would be a really awesome tribute. Or just maybe even a couple other. Maybe Google can do it. I don't know. Anyway, taking a look at his chart. Don't have a birth time for Mr. Hawking. However, let's see. Fixed stars. He actually has a Deneb Algadi here, conjunct Venus. Okay, this actually makes people fairly brilliant. Really though, brilliance is seen with the position of Mars. Let's see, Mercury here. These two are actually square each other. When we look at the moon here, usually intelligence, okay, so intelligence can actually be seen from the fifth house as intelligence really is about creative intelligence. And here having Venus and Mercury placed in this house is actually pretty good for the ability to process information. So really, he was able to take ideas and take them and bring them in and process them differently than other people. That's really a large fifth house talent. So if you have Mercury in the fifth house, this is really great for like education, creative ideas, and really here too, when you see Mercury in Capricorn, usually it indicates somebody that's in the technical field. Now, he was in physics, so he could have been in computer physics if he really wanted to. Let's see other things about his chart. Let's see, Jupiter is retrograde in the sign of Taurus. Other than that, Mars is in a decent position, and with a retrograde Saturn, he had a lot of difficult relationships, and I know he had to fight hard to get his a lot of his things accepted. So I mean, he did not have an easy life, and retrograde Saturn can make that stuff difficult. Now, not knowing his ascendant, what I would postulate is that his ascendant is in the sign of Aquarius because this puts Mars in the third house of intelligence, and then this is also too has a retrograde Saturn, and Mars is also the house of being able to communicate with your hands, and having a retrograde Saturn that's going to hold that back. It actually internalizes that, so that's really what I'm willing to bet that his ascendant is Aquarius, but that's a guess. But anyway, moving on here, let's see, Theresa May expels 23 Russian diplomats. And you know why they really left? Because it was the food. Because what the fuck is that? I mean, British food is like just they take an animal and they turn it inside out and they throw it in the oven and call it a day, man. Blood pudding. Anyway, this this is this is Theresa May's chart. And if you take a look, she has a couple of prominent placements here. Let's see, Pluto conjunct Regulus. Actually, she has a lot of stuff hovering around Regulus. The Pluto and the Moon, Pluto-Moon conjunction. Okay, this is actually pretty good for politicians now. When the Pluto and Moon get together, they really give somebody the ability to read other people. And now, especially like with the trine formation, this makes people like really great marketers, really good at knowing how to relate to people. So Theresa May, like her or not like her, she has the ability, if you went into a room with her, she would be able to read you like a book. So I don't think there's really much pulling. You can't really pull the wool over her eyes. And now this being in the sign of Taurus too, especially with Jupiter, this lady is a natural born leader. Other interesting things. So her sun in a retrograde Mercury conjunct in the second house. That's fascinating. So Mercury is actually in an exalted position, and being retrograde, it operates a little bit differently. So in the sign of Virgo, it makes somebody pay attention to details, but when it goes retrograde, it makes it very hard to pay attention to details. Now, her exception is that when there is a retrograde Mercury, she does fantastic. So look for her communication ability to be on par during this whole Russian thing, because Mercury's going retrograde in a few weeks, so this, or actually a few days. So this is something that you really want to keep your eye on. Really powerful stuff. Let's see. Okay. Now, the election is a virtual tie in Pennsylvania. I guess they declared the Democrat the winner, but come on, there's going to be a recount in this. So really, before we make a decision, we have to wait for the recount to come in. However, I took the liberty of pulling both these guys' charts because this will kind of give us an idea of really the planetary placements that were going on at the time, or at least in their natal chart. And of course, the Republicans lost because the Amish didn't get Trump's tweets, because they don't do the Twitter, because they're Amish and their Twitters on abacuses and stuff like that. Yeah, haha. Anyway, so this is the Democrat challenger's chart. So looking at him, and we have a very intelligent guy. Okay, so first of all, the Sun and Mercury and Venus are all in the sign of Gemini. Very strong placements for somebody that's an out of the box thinker. Generally not a politician. Usually politicians are attributed to Aquarius and Leo. Those are the really strong, and also too now the planets, the Sun and Saturn are also too related to politicians. Now looking at him, actually he has a retrograde Saturn and Mars, though. This is interesting. Wow. He has a retrograde Saturn conjunct Mars in the sign of Libra. So when Mars and Saturn get together, that's a very difficult planetary combination. So this guy is rife with scandal, I guess, looking at this. And actually, I think, you know, when Mars and Saturn get together, it makes somebody fairly combative. This is actually a pretty rough combination. This is also in the 6th house, too. So I don't think it really, you know, in the 6th house, it revolves around coworkers and like things like debt, litigation, and stuff like that. So I think really if this guy decided to get into like he would actually make a really great lawyer, but not like a huggy professional type lawyer, like somebody that's trying to make it like this is like basically an accident lawyer. Let's see. So he's got let's see, retrograde Saturn, retrograde Jupiter in the sign of Sagittarius too. Interesting. So I was looking at his dashas. He's in his Jupiter dasha right now, and let's see, 2017. So Jupiter, Venus. We can see Jupiter is in, let's see, this is the 8th house, not knowing his ascendant, but it's also across from Venus. So this actually really isn't a bad aspect with Jupiter and Venus. When they're opposed to each other, actually these are directly opposed to each other. Wow. So this guy's got a lot of powerful stuff going on in his chart. So looking at the Republican challenger, he's got a little bit more of a diverse chart. Once again, don't have a well, actually, you know what? He's got some things in common with him. So his Mars and his Moon are almost at the same point that this guy's Jupiter is at. So these guys are kind of the same in the way that they think about stuff. Mercury and Venus still. Boy, this isn't good for relationships. Retrograde Venus here. And then, of course, Mercury here is in the sign of Aquarius, like Stephen Hawking. Let's see, Sun in the sign of Aquarius. Of course, he's a man of the people. Now, what I think is really interesting is if you look at his Navamsa chart, you see Mercury here is in the sign of Gemini, which is pretty much the same as his Democratic challenger. So, and then if you look too, his Jupiter, whoops, check this out. I'm trying to get rid of that little bar there. Okay, if you take a look at his Jupiter in the lower left-hand corner of the chart, it's actually at the same position as his challenger. So these guys actually have a lot of stuff in common. Really fascinating. Now, and he's got a retrograde exalted Venus too. And then Venus is conjunct Altair, so gives hardiness, courage. Actually looking at this guy's chart, let's see, he's in his Jupiter Mercury, another guy in his Jupiter period. Let's see, looking at his chart, so his Jupiter is in the sign of Libra, not a bad placement, and then Mercury is 4 houses. I don't know. I'm surprised he actually didn't pull this one off. So let's, let's keep an eye on the recount, because this chart actually slightly favors the Republican. So, I know it's a little bit after the fact right now, but I'm really fascinated to see how this plays out. But so anyway, thank you for joining me. And of course, if you want to contact me, my email is below in the comments section. And of course, everybody have a great day. And we will be doing some more astrology in the news later on this weekend. Thank you. Oh, also too, I'm doing book reviews. So if you want to check those out, I'm reviewing specifically Vedic astrology books, and I'm also going to do this book here. Should have been. This one's really awesome. Planet and Star Combinations by Bernadette Bradley. She does parent Celtic astrology, so that is really fascinating stuff. It's completely different than Vedic or the tropical Western that we're used to. So, all right, everybody, have a great evening.